Hey, Ben, how are you this morning?
I am very well, thank you, chaps. Well, thank you very much indeed for joining me today.
It's our pleasure.
Now, I'm going to have to admit it to you guys. I'm wearing my brand new SHAZAM t-shirt just for this interview.
Oh, that's fantastic. We love hearing that.
Now, Peter, I'll start with yourself if that's okay. Now, I know this is your second foray into the superhero genre after AQUAMAN, which was awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
Now, although the story is set in the same cinematic universe, the DC universe, I believe you and David were really keen to explore a different tone in this movie. Could you kind of tell us a little bit about how the tone of this film is going to differ from your previous work?
Sure. I mean, I think, with each of these movies, the idea is to to use a tone that suits the character from both the comic book and the story that you want to tell. So, Aquaman has that much more fantastical feel to it as you're exploring, the worlds that have never been seen underwater before. But Shazam, it really leans into the idea of a fun and funny action comedy with this tremendous wish fulfillment core to it. Because that's the character. It's a 14-year-old boy who gets the power to become an adult superhero when he says the word Shazam. So it just naturally lends itself to something, really funny. And we frequently described it as Big meets Superman. And that's really what the movie is.
Well, thanks very much, Peter. That's fantastic. Now, David, I'll turn to yourself, sir. And I'm afraid I really can't thank you for your previous work. Lights Out. It scared the absolute pants off me, man.
Nice. Well, that's what I want. That's the biggest compliment. Scaring your pants off.
Well, it certainly did. Anyway, so anyway, David, I mean, it really sounds like you've assembled your own kind of dream team of creatives that you've worked with before for this movie. From director of photography Maxime Alexandra, stunt teams from AQUAMAN, production designer Jennifer Spence, and composer Benjamin Wallfish. Could you tell us a bit about this dream team that you've put together?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you take on something that's very new to you, you want to work with people who you know are awesome and work well together. And there was just so much. I mean, I think the key to being a good director is hiring the people who are much more experienced than you and has life experience as well. Like our production designer, Jennifer Spence, who designed this group home where the foster kids live. I mean, she's worked in a group home herself and could base the house on that, but she could also tell me about her experience being, a foster parent. So that's the great thing about movies, that it's such a collaborative experience.
A really obvious thing, I think, for anyone who's been following social media and things, is that there's actually a real commitment right across the board with this movie. Now, especially, I think, that's most obvious to people looking at pictures on Google, in terms of hours even spent in the gym by star Zachary Levi, of course. What an epic body transformation.
He was very dedicated, yeah. And I was shocked to see how much you actually have to eat to get a physique like that. He has to eat like every other hour to get enough calories to put on that kind of weight. And even when shooting, it was sometimes like, all right, we're ready, we've set up the shot, bring in Zach, and it's like, oh, he's eating, he just has to finish his meal.
Fantastic. I wonder if we could touch on the costume as well just for a while. Fantastic costume, really kind of striking costume. I know this was put together with your frequent collaborator Leah Butler, of course, but I think, David, you had a really specific vision for how you wanted this to look, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, Shazam is one of the older superheroes. He is from the golden age of comics, around the time when Superman came out, and I wanted him to feel like a golden age superhero, and also what a 14-year-old kid would be like, okay, this is what a superhero should look like. But at the same time, have him be in a style where you could put him next to someone in the Justice League, for example, and he would fit in. But yeah, so it was a combination of like the shorter cape, for example, which is very old school, but then having details like, the textured suit that you have in the Man of Steel Superman. So it was a lot of fun to bring all these elements together and create our own version of a superhero. One
of my favorite facts about it actually is that I believe the bolt itself actually does light up, doesn't it?
When it wants to cooperate, yes. There were a lot of issues, like, you'd be in the middle of a take and suddenly the bolt would just turn off or turn on super bright. So there were moments where I was like, I really regret going down this practical route.
Change Shazam's batteries.
Yeah, but then you have moments, that are these great visual moments of like Shazam stepping out of smoke, or he's in darkness and you see the light shining through, and it's like, okay, it was worth it.
Fantastic. Now, guys, I'm going to have to interrupt just for a second because I want to ask a question that I think Billy Batson himself might ask you both. Is that all right?
Sure.
This is an obvious one, really. Which superpowers would you both pick, though? If you were kind of in the DC universe with Shazam, which powers would you pick? I mean, obviously, production and directing, that kind of already is a superpower, so you can't say that. What superpower would you
those are
pick?
pretty lame superpowers. There's no kid that the wish fulfillment is to produce movies.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the Shazam superpower that I've been liking more and more is his electricity powers, because he can just do so much with it. It really does come in handy to be able to shoot lightning and control lightning.
Yeah, and for me, it's actually not a Shazam power. For me, it's teleportation, I think, is the one. The tremendous convenience of getting from point A to point B instantaneously. As I sit in London traffic today, teleportation is the way to go.
No more tube for you. It'd be great. You just have a cup of coffee and you're there already, right?
It's the ultimate Oyster card.
Absolutely amazing. I wonder if as well we could kind of touch on one of the main messages. I don't want to give away too much, of course, but one of the main messages of the movie, which I think is really, really nice, is all about family, isn't it? I wonder if you could both kind of touch on that a little bit for us.
Yeah, I mean, it is about, Billy is a foster kid who's been, he thinks his mom is out there. He's trying to find her. And it has a message about family not being necessarily about blood, but about bond and finding your family. And I love that we were able to show a positive depiction of a group home and foster kids, because usually in movies you have like the evil foster parents and the bad group home,
And ultimately, what one of the messages of the film is, there is a superhero inside each one of us, no matter your color, age, race, etc. And the question is just how do you get that superhero out? How do you find a way to access it? And we think that the foster home setting is something that's pretty unique, and it works beautifully for the film.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks so much, guys. I won't keep you too much longer now. We'll let you go. I just want to thank you very much indeed for chatting to us on Coast FM and at Source FM today. And yeah, I'll let you go. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ben. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, Ben. This is Peter. And this is Chris.
Awesome. Well, it's so good to have you. Thank you very much indeed for chatting to us today. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
You know what? I'm already a little bit obsessed with the Into the Unknown song. I'm going to have to tell you that, guys. Already. It didn't take long. It's just been released today, right? And I'm already obsessed with it. I've heard it about 1 million times. So
Perfect.
Our job is done.
I mean, we're being spoiled. We really are spoiled because we've also got a Panic at the Disco version of that particular song.
Yeah, it's a great one. He just did a great. What I love is that there's Adina's version is fantastic, and Panic's version is just as fantastic, but very, very different. So I love them both.
Oh, amazing. Well, audiences are going to get treated to that at the end, I believe, at the end credits, aren't they? So they can look forward to that. But yeah. I'd love to talk a little bit about the story, first of all, guys, if that's okay, that we're going to be following this time. Of course, everyone really, really excited about returning to this world and seeing where the characters are up to, what Elsa and Anna are up to. But I wonder if we could kind of touch on what the story is about this time. I mean, it kind of sounds to me like it's a bit more mature. They're going to be exploring, where they fit in this world. So it's kind of, I've seen you describe it as almost like what happens after the kind of happily ever after story that Frozen kind of was. So I wonder if you could explain a little bit about that.
Well, it is. It is them. Our characters are growing up a little bit. We were inspired by our own, kids at home. Peter and I both have kids who have just graduated college, and and the world is waiting for them. But it's, what are they going to do in the world? What is their path? What is their destiny? What do they have to give the world? And that's what's kind of inspired us with our characters. They're at the same age as our own kids are. So, and it's all about finding what you have to give the world, and the change can be very scary. And like the song Into the Unknown, stepping into the unknown, do you dare? But that's what we love about it. And so they all are on that journey, and Elsa sort of propels it with that song. And she's trying to find out, why does she have these powers?
That's absolutely fantastic. And I understand, guys, as well, that, as part of the kind of creative process you actually went on a pretty amazing trip to Norway, Finland, and Iceland to kind of look at the landscapes, the people, the cultures, and even spoke to botanists and things. That must have been a pretty awesome experience prior to creating the film.
Well, it was an important experience. It was 3 years ago that we ventured there with Chris and Jen, the directors, and Jen's also the writer, and we brought our head of story, and really we walked the forests of Norway and Finland and really felt all the folklore and where these stories came from. You could feel the hidden people. You could feel where these big boulders were in the middle of the forest. You could understand why they thought maybe giants had dropped them there. So, and Anna felt very much at home in this sort of enchanted forest, this fairy tale land. But when we went to Iceland, and the sort of the stark, almost black and white landscape of Iceland, and then the power of nature there between the volcanoes and the ocean and the glaciers, we felt Elsa felt more at home there, and we realized that more mythic landscape, we had two different characters. Elsa being a more mythic character, carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. She has magical powers, and they often meet a tragic fate. But then we had Anna, and the more fairy tale character, and we had those two stories running in parallel. I think that was a big turning point for us in the development of Frozen 2.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really interesting kind of merging, as you say, of two quite different things there, the fairy tales and the kind of mythic nature of Elsa and her kind of magic powers and almost like a superhero. But on the other hand, obviously you've got Anna, who I suppose at the same time as almost being this fairy tale character, as you say. I don't know what you would think, but also sort of, I suppose, grounds the pair in the film, particularly in Frozen 1. She acts to kind of ground Elsa a bit as well, doesn't she?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think Anna's the one that everybody can relate to. I think Elsa's the one that everybody looks up to. But we all are Anna, where we are that sort of ordinary person, but she's an ordinary hero, which is fantastic. So we look up to Anna too.
Fantastic. Let's talk then a bit more about the music, if that's okay, because of course it is plays such an amazing role in the first Frozen. Everyone absolutely adored it, and I'm sure the same is going to be equally true of Frozen 2. So I think probably one of the moments that people are really looking forward to is the unveiling of that song Into the Unknown in the film. So that must have been an amazing moment to put together for you.
Well, I love it. I mean, working with Bobby and Kristen, I think they've delivered 7 amazing new songs. Into the Unknown is a great launch to the movie. It really Elsa is resisting hearing this voice, but then she makes a decision to go into the unknown, to face the challenges of the movie, and so it's a great launching point. But Anna also has a great song. Elsa has another very powerful song later in the movie. Kristoff gets to sing, Olaf, of course. So there's a lot of great music, all in support of the characters and the story that hopefully people will also be singing for quite some time.
And Kristoff finally has a song, and it is inspired by 80s rock power ballads.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing that. I'm going to have to tell you guys, I'm going to be cruising with it in my car for months to come after I see this film. It's what happened last time. I mean, you've just got to admit it. I think some people out there, right, claim to say, "Oh no, I don't listen to that." No, of course not. Yes, they do. Check their playlist. You'll find it in their driving playlist.
That's great.
No, I'm really looking forward to it, guys. And I wonder if we could touch just again on the story. I won't keep you too much longer now. I am aware of your time, of course. We'll let you go very, very shortly. But coming back to the kind of story, it kind of seems to me like you're kind of stepping away a little bit. And obviously, I don't want you to give away too much here. Of course, so people can go and see the film and really enjoy it for themselves. But you're kind of stepping away a little bit from that kind of classic, I suppose, traditional Disney princess style, happily ever after story. This kind of seems more, and I know we mentioned at the beginning here and kind of alluded to it, but a bit more mature theme, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and it's all in support of the characters. The thing that we've had screenings with younger kids in it and everything. It's interesting though, even though we say the story may be mature and more mature and our characters growing up. The kids, they're looking up to these characters. The kids always look up. They never sort of, they never look down to the younger ones or whatever for inspiration. They always look up. So it's fascinating. The kids they're loving it. They're loving the journeys that the characters are going on, and they're loving the whole roller coaster ride. I was very inspired by Pinocchio when I was a kid, and that definitely is a roller coaster ride of emotions, and sometimes it gets a little more mature, a little darker here and there. But in the end, it all works out. It's a wonderful, happy ending, and sometimes these stories, they're fairy tales, and they can be sort of a teaching tool for kids learning how to cope with some of their fears and the dangers in the world, but doing it in a safe place, like watching a movie. So that's where we go. And that was sort of from Walt's legacy of these great films, and again, keeping that alive.
Oh, well, Peter and Chris, thank you so much. I'll let you go now, but I would just want to, say thanks very much. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the film, as I'm sure all of our listeners are. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks, Ben.
Well, Julian, thank you so much for joining us today on Coast FM.
No, it's nice of you to ask me.
And Julian, can I just say, actually, before we start, despite all of your... Now, I know you've got a very, very long list of credits, both behind the camera and in front of the camera, but can I just say that I am most jealous about your appearance on the James Bond fan page, the official James Bond fan page, for your appearance in Tomorrow Never Dies. Amazing.
One of my career high points.
Yeah, I'm jealous. Very, very jealous. Anyway, let's get talking about the brand new Downton Abbey film. Now, first of all, Julian, for fans of the series, we're actually following straight on, aren't we, in this movie? Straight on from the series. It's the same timeline.
Oh, yes. It's about a year and a half after the end of the series.
Fantastic. So fans of the series can know that they can just basically jump straight back in there. And I wonder if we could talk a little bit about, because I can imagine it, being quite a tricky place to be in, actually, because you've got this beloved franchise to start with. Did you kind of feel like you'd put those characters to bed, or did you sort of know that you would be bringing back these characters at some point in the future?
No, I didn't. I read in interviews that Gareth Neame did, and he had thought about the possibility of a film during the last series, but I didn't. I wrapped it up, we all sighed and cried and said goodbye, and I thought that was it. Because remember, there are lots of series. I mean, I was a big fan of Mad Men. I was a big fan of West Wing. I was a big fan of The Good Wife. None of them had films. And so there was no inevitability about it at all. But gradually this idea got going that there might be room for a film and the public might not have completely finished with us. And then it sort of took shape, I suppose, for me, about a year and a half after the end of the series.
Oh, fantastic. And Julian, I was thinking, a really, really nice point to make here, I think, is that this is just, the perfect proof, if more proof were needed. Of course it isn't, but this is more proof that people just love the franchise. They want more, so you're giving them more.
Well, it's very flattering of you to say that. But I hope they enjoy it. That is my main purpose, or purpose of all of us, that the people who'd like the series will really enjoy the film and love their time in the film. So that's what we've been aiming at.
Fantastic. And Julian, I don't know if you want to give, obviously you don't want to give too much away here, but I wonder if we could talk a little bit about the kind of key event that the family are going to go through, the key event that the film focuses on. That must have been quite, a tough decision to make. Or did you kind of already have an idea what that might be?
No, I didn't at first, but I knew we were looking for something that would involve everyone, that would affect the family, would affect the staff, would affect the people who lived locally, and something had to happen that would be in all their lives, they would all pay attention to. And then I was reading a book about the Fitzwilliam family at Wentworth Woodhouse, and it came to a visit by the King and Queen in 1912 when they toured various coal mines and various other things. And as I was reading it, I thought this would answer that. If the King and Queen come to Downton for a visit as part of a tour of Yorkshire, then everyone would be involved, the servants, the family, the village, and so on. And of course, you're also looking for a subject for a film that will be filmic and take you beyond the confines of television. And by making it a royal visit, we were suddenly given the opportunity for pageants and banquets and balls and all the rest of it. So we could make it visually very glamorous, I suppose, and also, I hope, interesting. But out of that came the idea that all the lesser stories that involved the characters would grow out of the royal visit. So it had a kind of unity.
I think that's fantastic. I think as well, anyone listening in who, of course, is already very familiar with the Downton Abbey series and was a big fan and looking forward to the film, they probably already have ideas in their head, of how the various characters are going to, each respond to this event. So I bet people are kind of already coming up with what they think might happen in the film.
They probably are on Twitter, but as I don't know how to work it, I'm safe.
Well, at least if this was someone else's film, it'd be great, Julian, because you'd be totally safe from spoilers. So that's a good thing. Amazing. And of course, returning to back to the location, Highclere Castle. What a beautiful building! It must be, it must have been an amazing feeling to be back there and thinking, wow, this is really happening again.
It was rather extraordinary, actually. I mean, I went for quite an early day on the shoot. And there was everyone back in their costumes, and we were standing in the great hall again. And it was as if the last 4 years had sort of vanished. That was rather a strange feeling, but a nice one. I mean, I think for most of us, it was a happy time and it was a happy experience. And, we're unlikely to be in a series that makes that kind of impact more than a couple of times, if you're lucky, in a whole career. More than once if you're lucky, really. And so I think for most of us, even if we're now done, they will look back on it with a reasonably warm feeling.
That's fantastic. And Julian, I want to be careful asking this question, of course, because you might not want to answer if you don't want to reveal too much about the film. But I was wondering if you had any kind of real memorable moments, during the filming, because I do hear rumours about an artillery. But of course, please don't say any more if you want that to be a surprise for people.
Yes, I wouldn't like to be specific, but simply, when things are laid on for the sovereign, they tend to be laid on in a great scale and in a great way, and that is very good fun to film.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure people are going to look forward to it, uncovering what that mystery celebration is. Well, thank you very much for your time so far, Julian. I'm aware of your time, of course. I won't keep you for too much longer now. Just a few things to finish up with, if that's okay, before I do let you go.
Of course.
And firstly, Julian, I just want to double-check that you are happy with everything that we've recorded today.
Oh, yes.
Perfect. Awesome. And secondly, Julian, now this is a bit daft, and you're going to have to excuse me, but just for a small way of thanking you, I wonder if you had a little song request. Can I thank you with a little song on the show today? And I know this is silly, but if you don't have one, that's fine.
Well, my sort of all-time favourite popular song is a song by Carole King called It Might As Well Rain Until September.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, well, I'll happily get that on. Well, Julian, thank you so much for your time. I will let you go. Thanks for chatting to us on Coast FM today. Been brilliant with you.
Lovely. Well, thank you for inviting me.
No problem at all. Thank you so much, Julian. Goodbye now.
Bye.
Hello, Ben.
Hi, Ben.
Hello, both. Well, thank you very much for chatting to me today. Really, really pleased to have you on the show with us. You okay?
Great, yeah. We're in good shape.
Excellent. Well, you know what? I must say actually straight away that I was actually really excited to see this focus on elephants for your beautiful new film, The Elephant Queen, because I've only got to see elephants once when I went to Kenya on a field course. I was very lucky to do that, and actually. And of course, you guys know this already. I know you've been in that area for many years doing this kind of work. But I must say, it was so humbling to see them in their natural environment. I think it's such a fascinating creature to focus on in your film.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing, isn't it? When you're with them, it just puts life into perspective.
Yes, no, it absolutely does. And I think if it's okay with you both, just to start with, just to get talking about this film, I'd really like to focus on the fact that you've kind of gone with you're making a story, not just a documentary, but actually a story. And we're going to focus on, this family of elephants and they're going through these tough times. That was a fantastic idea. I wonder if you could kind of tell us a little bit about how you kind of came about thinking about doing that.
We filmed in East Africa for 30 years, and elephants had always been somehow slightly tangential to our lives. But every time we saw a little interaction, say, of an elephant with a dung beetle or an elephant with a monkey or something, we'd file it away. And then what happened was we were filming in Amboseli National Park in 2009-10 when there was a terrible drought, and it was seeing how the matriarchs cared for the families when they were absolutely desperate times that made us think, there's a real story to be told here about the intelligence, the empathy, and the leadership of a family of elephants led by a charismatic matriarch, but at the same time try and show their position in the bigger picture, in the ecosystem in a way. But we wanted to do it through telling an emotional story.
I think for us, having a story and having a story that sustains over an hour and a half, it's very important that you engage in the characters, that there's an intimacy there, that you almost watching it as if you're and thinking, gosh, they're so like us, and you get sort of hooked in emotionally into their lives, which in so many ways reflect ours and reflect that whole sort of circle of life between the big and the small, and that one little action has an effect on the next.
That's fantastic. And I believe as well, it took you 8 years to make this film, so this was no easy feat at all to get this produced, wasn't it?
No, it was entirely independent. I mean, it started off literally with just Vicky and I, and a couple of camp crew and a vehicle in the bush in East Africa, and gradually people sort of attached themselves to it. We had a very long-term colleague, assistant director Etienne Olif, and he then joined us, and gradually it's like a snowball in a way, because we started to get material with it. People got excited about the story and became attached to it. But we were 4 years in Tsavo National Park filming every day, apart from the 4 or 6 weeks when we come back home to Cornwall.
Oh, fantastic. And talking about the filming just for a second, because obviously these shots are absolutely remarkable. I think the one thing that audiences will immediately pick up on is the fact that you've, not only, of course, do you get the majestic elephants, of course, enormous animals, but also the kind of ground level interactions going on the kind of smaller level. That must be quite a challenging thing to do. How do you kind of manage to get those both those scales in there in the same shots sometimes?
Okay, I'll tell you what you do. You build a metal box which is just big enough to put, in my case, your husband in, to put Mark in. You squeeze in a camera and a tripod. You bury the box, but you don't actually really bury it. You leave a metal lid exposed to the sun, and you make him stay in there for 12 hours a day. You roast him. I'm not quite sure what temperature until. And you hope he pops out with the result at the end of the day. But seriously, when
I don't, I mean, Vicky keeps me in there. I mean, I spent one time I spent 30 days straight in this box, and I came out a different person.
We're making me out to be the devil here, but it's actually a very equal joint job, this. But anyway, this box has a letterbox hole at the front of it, and it allowed us. We really wanted to tell the story of the little characters from down at their level, so that we gave them stature, so that we weren't just sort of, if we'd stayed at our level, we'd be always looking down at them and they would be diminished in those characters. But we wanted to be right down at elephant toenail height, and then at the same time, at other times, up with the elephants, so that you really felt the film from the perspective of all the characters.
And it was amazing being in that box, because I mean, the elephants knew I was there. They could obviously smell me, and they'd come very close. But then when I looked out of the box, I was looking literally straight up their trunks, and they were towering over me, so that anything that happened in front there gave this extraordinary perspective of being right at toenail height, but that yet these giants were there sort of drinking and washing and really sort of carrying on without being... It wasn't that they weren't aware of me, but they were aware and still
relaxed,
maintaining that normal behaviour, so they were totally relaxed.
Oh, that's fantastic. That does sound quite terrifying at times, though, Mark. Were there any kind of scary moments, or you're a professional? So
I think it's more my mind than anything else. Because every morning, because this box had this sort of pillar, this letterbox opening at the front. Every morning I'd get in, it would be full of toads and frogs who had jumped in overnight, looking for a safe place. So I'd have to bucket them out, and there'd regularly be 30 or 40 toads in there. But my one concern was that there were cobras around, and cobras love toads and frogs. And, a dark place, a dark hole in the middle of the day, smelling of toads and frogs would be the perfect place. And I just thought, if I get a cobra in here with me, as soon as they got inside the box, it would be trapped just like me. Neither of us would be able to get out, and I just didn't want them to be in that position.
No, I can see why. You might get some cool shots, Mark, but probably,
But I think some of some of the most dangerous moments are probably what we do when we're doing the aerials for the film, because we did some with drone, but not all of them by any means. And for example, the dust storms or the huge, the lightning storms, Mark is flying the plane to take the shots. So
what I do is we we strap a camera, a digital camera, to a strut mount, and then sometimes I'd have somebody with me. Oftentimes I'd be alone, and I'd fly up and then essentially fly the shot with the plane. So if we wanted to do like a reveal of a storm cloud coming, I get up there, I put the plane into a dive, head for the ground, and then see it on the monitor very gently, then pull up until the storm water went and the plane stalled and then sort of fell, and then I'd recover and we I'd repeat that time and time again until I got the shot.
Mark, you're sounding more and more kind of like the Indiana Jones of nature documentaries here. I'm really impressed.
I don't think
he's
so.
Cornish. What else do you expect?
Yeah, that's it. Well, it's sounding absolutely fantastic, and of course I do urge all of our listeners to check it out. It's actually debuting on Apple TV, so people can check it out, the film.
That's right. It's had a limited release in the UK and the States, and the lovely thing is that it goes out to a global audience tomorrow, and we're thrilled about that, and also what it will do for elephants, because we need people to fall in love with elephants, to really care about them and the predicament in which they're in, and this platform gives us potentially the ability to get this film in front of 1.5 billion people. So we're thrilled that Apple came on board.
Oh, well, Mark and Victor, that's fantastic. Thank you. And I won't keep you too much longer now. I'm aware of your time. I was just wondering if it would be okay if I played Africa by Toto for you now. Is that all right?
I think it would be fantastic.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great speaking to you, Ben.
Thank you so much, both. Bye now.
Bye now.
Hello.
Thank you very much for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
Hi, of course.
Well, I'd love to get talking then about this film coming out on Sky very soon for people to check out, and really just starting, obvious question really about the the real event that it's based on. When you were first approached to become part of this project, Nazanin, this must have been a bit of a shock that they were going back kind of to this area, but also an amazing opportunity to explore it and actually put forward some of the stories that the real people actually went through there.
Absolutely. It's a bit of a daunting task, I think, to confront something that was so traumatic for so many people in real life. And, only really a decade old. We're about to approach its 11th anniversary in November. And when we were filming it, it was sort of fresh in a lot of people's minds. And we wanted to be mindful of respecting the lives lost and also the people who survived. So, yes, it was something that I didn't take lightly.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the kind of messages the film is going to hopefully get across, I really do think some of these are still relevant for audiences right now. That's one of unity and sticking together, despite these horrendous times that people unfortunately do sometimes go through.
Absolutely. I think the story is unfortunately timely and timeless. I don't know that we're ever going to be able to overcome, the worst of humanity, which is basically people trying to divide us and form ridges between us. But the thing that I think gives me hope in the story, and the reason I so badly wanted to be a part of this story, is because it really is an anthem of resistance at the end of the day, and it shows that the worst in humanity can bring out the very best in us, and that when we band together, we have a better chance of survival. And at the end of the day, bullets don't discriminate. And when we're in these horrific situations, we are in it together, regardless of our faith, of our nationality, of our ethnicity, or any of our differences. And in that sense, the Taj Hotel served as a microcosm of the greater world. There were people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, religions, nationalities, all thrown into this horrific situation together and forced to band together to survive.
In terms of the kind of research process behind getting through, I understand that you did kind of base the characters on, of course, real life people who did unfortunately go through the event. What was that process like, meeting those people or basing what you're doing on those people?
Yes, my character, Zahra Kashani, is actually a composite character, so based on a couple of different people, women who actually existed and went through this horrific ordeal. And as are some of the other characters in the film, of course, there's the character of the Chef Oberoi, who is a real character that portrayed by Anupam Kher. And for myself, I decided to watch Surviving Mumbai, the documentary.
Yes.
And also there's a wealth of information online, of course, because of news footage and interviews done with various people who were survivors, and just news articles, and Anthony, our director, Anthony Maris, was himself a well of information, because he did approximately 2 years of research before he even started on the film. So he was very, very knowledgeable.
And it sounds like there's just been a massive effort right across the board here, just to really give a fitting tribute as well to the people who went through this, and be as true to life as possible, but at the same time bring out some of these stories that emerged and tell them in a faithful but a way that's going to captivate the minds of the audience, and just show people this is what they went through. This was life, and these are the stories that emerged from this.
Well, exactly. I think it's a tribute at the end of the day to the heroes, the everyday heroes. We're so used to watching Hollywood films and seeing Hollywood heroes, fictional heroes, and this is really about the everyday hero. It's about people who were forced to tap into their strength and their resilience and overcome. And we really want to just pay respect and pay tribute and homage to the heroes and the survivors of that attack.
I'd just like to touch on the actual filming of this now, just for a second, if that's okay, because I understand that this must have been an incredibly stressful time as an actor in this, because of course you had, I understand actually for part of this, you actually had kind of gunshot sounds and things like this going on in the set, just to make the scenario a bit more stressful and a bit more real, a bit more believable.
Yeah, Anthony, our director, used that sort of random gunshots at random times on set, just to keep us at the edge of our nerves, really, yes. And to create this sort of very nerve-wracking and intense atmosphere that we were forced to be in, for extended periods of time. It was very traumatic for us to portray these characters, but every morning I woke up with a renewed sense of hope, because it gives you a sense of, gratitude for everything that we do have. We have to live our lives every day knowing how lucky we are to have our loved ones with us, and it really helped me put myself in the shoes of the people who face these atrocities and overcome. And really it gives you a sense of hope at the end of the day that we are better together, united, and setting aside our differences.
Well, Nazanin, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I really enjoyed chatting to you, and I do urge all of our listeners to of course catch Hotel Mumbai when it releases. Any very final messages for listeners today, Nazanin? And I just want to double check as well that you are happy with everything that I asked today, in which case I'll let you go.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's been wonderful, and I urge everybody to check out Hotel Mumbai when it's out in cinemas and on Sky Cinema.
Nazanin, thank you so much. Pleasure chatting to you. I'll let you go then. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Cheers. Thanks.
Hello, Ben. Yes, Cornwall gorgeous today.
You know what? Unfortunately, it's a tiny bit cloudy. It's not too bad. It's quite warm. It has been glorious recently, though.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I can't really complain because the beach is just down the road, so it's okay. Well, Simon, I must say I'm very excited to talk to you about your beautiful new film, The Art of Racing in the Rain. So I really want to thank you for coming on the show on Coast FM with us to talk a bit about it today. And my first question for you, Simon, if you're good to go your end, I really just wanted to come back to the story, really, this particular story. What was it about it that kind of drove you to focus on this project?
I'd always loved this script, and it's based on a best-selling book that sold 6 million copies in the US alone. It's a fantastic story about living our lives, and it's about family, it's about our relationship with our pets, it's about the world of motor racing, and it just seemed to have so many aspects to it. And so far, no one has, no male or female has seen it without shedding at least one tear. So I'm proud of that too.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic, Simon. And one of the key things, of course, that viewers will be really excited about is the different kind of points of view that we're going to get treated to in this movie, of course, looking through the kind of eyes of a dog. Now, this, of course, is going to be really interesting for viewers to think about before they go and see the film, but I understand it's got quite a nice name as well, the Enzo Cam. I wonder if you could tell us a bit about the Enzo Cam.
Well, that was just something, a name we had on the set. For,
yes.
Because what I liked about making this film is that it features in the life of a family, birth, marriages and deaths that we've seen in many, many films over the years. But in this film, we see them from the dog's point of view. So placing the camera low and looking up to the human world was a big part of it.
Fantastic. And I think one of the really nice things that people are probably going to take away from this film, Simon, of course, so the various kind of philosophical points, and of course this is a major aspect of the story itself. I know you're kind of thinking as well that this is actually perfect for this day and age, isn't it?
Well, I don't know perfect, but it's definitely, I think, life-enhancing. And Milo, Ventimiglia, and the dog, Enzo, try and take the lessons from the racetrack and apply them to living their daily lives. And there is this philosophical aspect to it, where the dog yearns to be human and is always looking about the way humans behave in a way of learning that.
And absolutely fantastic that you got Kevin Costner, of course, to be the voice of Enzo. I'm sure that was an exciting moment when that casting was decided upon.
You're right. Yeah, it really was. And to have, it's a dog looking back on his life, to have this, iconic American voice is a big part of that.
Fantastic. And just on the topic of casting, Simon, if you're okay to talk about that for a little bit, I understand you were absolutely delighted, really, with how it turned out, with how your fantastic stars turned out. Milo, of course, playing Denny, and Amanda, of course, playing Eve. You were delighted with how both of those came to light, basically, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. Milo Ventimiglia, as fans of the Gilmore Girls and This Is Us know, is a brilliant actor, and B, sort of empathetic, and he seemed perfect for this part. And I've always loved Amanda Seyfried. She's so good in everything she does, Mamma Mia, Les Mis. And the biggest task she had on this film was pretending or acting that she's not a dog lover. Because in real life, she's passionate about animals. And she had to pretend she was wary of the dog. But because she's so accomplished, she pulled that off.
Fantastic. Now, I understand as well, on the topic of dogs, of course, I believe screenwriter Mark actually got a puppy, I believe, whilst he was working on the first draft, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Now, this does beg the question then, Simon, if you weren't already a big fan of dogs and didn't already have a dog in your life, has this tempted you at all? Working with Parker and Butler on set, of course, has this kind of tempted you to get a dog in your life now?
Well, we do have a dog in
Oh, you do?
Yeah, my wife is passionate about her Chihuahua.
Oh, fantastic.
It was a close call because those puppies in The Art of Racing are so adorable.
Yes.
It's very hard for me not to leave as one of them at the end of the shoot.
Oh, I can imagine that. Yeah, that's fantastic. And just a last couple of questions. I'm aware of your time, so I won't keep you too long today. But one of the things that kind of shines through, of course, is obviously the racing aspect of the film, and the racing scenes themselves are all extremely realistic, and you can really tell there's a lot of passion gone into these. I wonder if you could kind of talk a little bit about the process of putting together those scenes.
I was greatly assisted by the fact that Patrick Dempsey is one of my producers, who you know is an ace racing driver in his own right. And also Neil Moritz is the producer of The Fast and the Furious, as well as this film. So I had fantastic guidance from the two of them and others. But it was tricky because Milo's character gravitates up the hierarchy of the racing world. So every scene he's a driver in with a whole different set of cars and a different racetrack. So it was very demanding, but I'm thrilled that people who know their racing cars better than I are very impressed by what we deliver in this film. And if you like Ferrari or state-of-the-art supercars, this is the film for you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Simon. Very final question for you, and I'll let you go. And thank you for chatting to us on Coast FM today. But really, I wanted to finish just by asking, I don't know, if you could kind of give kind of one piece of advice, or in an ideal world, how would you like our listeners to go into the film to watch it? I mean, is there any kind of, I know it sounds a bit silly, but perhaps mental preparation to make before they go in? How do you want them to kind of ideally experience it?
It's a very enjoyable film. I've loved hearing the laughter of preview audiences.
Fantastic.
To go in the way they used to go into the film before CGI and superheroes took over.
Yes.
And to be prepared to go on this journey with this family, the ups and downs, be moved by that. It is emotional, but it has an unexpectedly positive ending. And just to go in and give themselves to what I hope will be a very rewarding evening in the cinema.
Well, Simon, thank you very much indeed. I really do appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Goodbye now.